Welcome to Roots and Ruminants, your podcast for creative and innovative use of farm, pasture, and rangeland. We're going back to the basics of raising and grazing livestock, growing your own forage, and practical land use.
And we're back.
All right.
Episode 5662 of Roots and Ruminants. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's just Jared and I.
We are our own guests today,
Yes.
as we do from time
We're
to time.
guestless.
We're not, no guests.
But we're back because the seasons are a-changing.
But
And
every
it's
time the
pertinent.
seasons change, every time the seasons change,
Yeah.
it feels like it's time just to collect our thoughts and talk about what's ahead.
Yeah, let's recap the summer and get into fall and talk all things. Production agriculture, what's happening as far as there's a lot of political things going on right now, and some of it is relevant that
There's an
maybe we'll
election.
touch on.
There's an
It's
election
coming up a couple
Yep.
years, right?
Yep, I think it's a long time from now. I don't have to worry about it too much, but
It's coming up. Biden and
sometime
Trump,
in the next few
2024.
years. Yep. Joe Biden is going to run
When
for
is this-
president again. I'm just finding out. Hold on. Oh, that's not the case. Never mind.
It's just in.
But the Democrats are going to give it another shot. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about that coming up. First, summertime. Summer is, well, technically still going for another almost 2 weeks.
20 days.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, but so we're on the 10th of September, which means in eastern South Dakota, upper Midwest, it's time to chop silage.
Yep.
It's also time. Our kids just went back to school after Labor Day.
Ours as well.
We wrapped up the state fairs, and so that when we get done with fair season, that's like close the book on summer and open it up for school season, I think.
Right. It is time to put away the straw hats and the white dresses for those following fashion news and get into fall. Even though fall does not begin for another 12 days or 11 days. What?
How much fashion news do you follow?
Well, I don't know. I just know you're not supposed to wear a straw hat after Labor Day, and I think the white dress thing is also a thing.
There's a movie clip like that. It says, "Don't you know you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day?"
I think that's...
What is that
I don't know
from?
if it's dresses or not. I have no idea, but I remember it. It's a movie that we may have watched several times back in college. What's that? You know it? You don't know it.
Yeah, it's Boss Hogg is wearing a white suit on... Why can't I think of the name of the
Smokey and
movie?
Bandit?
No.
What are you talking about? Boss Hogg. Oh, is it Dukes of Hazzard?
Dukes of Hazzard.
That's what that's from?
That's what that's from.
Huh. I don't know if I saw that or not then. I never did watch a lot of Dukes of Hazzard.
It's a
Really
good flick.
didn't. Oh, yeah. It's a great series, but I just never got into it.
Okay, silage chopping season.
Of the corn.
Do you chop your own season? Do you chop your own
no.
season? Do you chop your own silage?
No, we do not.
I wonder what percentage of people chop their own silage.
We should do a poll.
5%?
No, it's more than that.
10%?
I'd say it's still 25% around here. 30% maybe. 40.
All right.
There's still a lot of crews.
Well, yeah, that's my point. There are so many crews that nobody chops their own silage.
Yeah. But I think it's still like in my neighborhood 30-40%
Okay.
that chop their own.
Yeah.
Because most everybody that has a silage chopping crew does their own silage. You think about that.
Yeah.
They only do it for 6 or 7 guys, which is the average probably around
Okay.
here. They chop
All
and
right.
they chop for a few people. They're not the large interstate conglomerates of silage chopping that
Yeah.
is a thing these days.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hours, a lot of running, hard.
And with the dairies being built to us, I think we are now past the point where more than half of the silage in a 15-mile radius, or more than half of the corn acres around me are cut for silage. I think it might be 60%. It's an insane number. I just saw they set up the pylons to put up the dry corn pile
Okay.
in Willow Lake this year at the Agtegra location, and it's like, I don't know where you think there's going to be corn. I mean, one, it's got to be dry enough, you know.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of it that is out here is going to be pretty wet around us, and then most of it's getting chopped. I don't think they'll get that pile filled.
What are you planting after you chop? Are you gonna plant anything?
I am still going to do just an oats, brassica, crimson clover mix on
Okay.
some stuff. And then others Okay, I'm thinking
Did
of
you
a
go back
very
to
small.
beans on those acres, or do you go
Yeah,
back to?
I'm gonna go to something different, some kind of a warm season forage next year. But I'm not sure. But I'm not gonna double crop it.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna plant something now and then get an early start on either. I don't know. I might do Italian ryegrass or I might do something different. So I wanted to kill off. I just
Hmm.
want the ground covered. I'm gonna graze it a little bit because I'll have the field borders and things like that. But this is like in a very small area, like behind my place.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're doing on all the commercially cut stuff. We're doing All American on everything over there, except we did about 300 acres of that custom high fly mix, where we added a few things in there. I think some crimson clover into that.
And flew it over the
Yeah, that
corn.
that went on the 18th of August, and then the rest of it they're going to start chopping our stuff. It sounds like mid this week into next week, and then we'll start getting rye cocktails and the rest of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, did a big mix and match.
Lots of rye. Rye still seems to be the most popular thing. More triticale though this year,
Yeah.
I would say. I don't know what I think maybe some of the reason is just the proven quality factor of that triticale, and if there's a lot of these dairies like that trit over the rye, boost your protein, gives you a little longer harvest window.
Well,
The
I
thing
think they're
with
gonna
rye is it's fast, but it goes to poor quality in about a week's time, from
fast.
good to poor quick.
I think they're gonna chop 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 acres the way it sounds around us this spring. The dairy is of either rye
Rye,
or triticale. Yeah,
yeah,
most people are
yep,
using rye, but
yeah.
a good jag of it. Be a
Actually,
nice
just
test.
just received the SDSU Forge trial results off of their winter annuals,
Oh, that'd be interesting.
and yeah, it is very interesting.
How long have they done? Have they always done that? It's
This
new.
is the first year of, well, no, no, no. They have done it many years, um, but this was forage and grain trials.
Oh, okay.
And so it did compare rye versus winter wheat versus winter triticale varieties.
Hmm.
If you were to guess which had the highest crude protein, which would you guess? Rye,
It
triticale, or forage winter wheat?
it should be forage winter wheat, but I'm gonna guess triticale.
One variety of triticale was the highest, but
Okay,
otherwise forage winter wheat looked to be. So
was
Willow
better.
Creek, yep, was 21.4% crude protein. Um, Flex 719, which is probably the most popular triticale variety, was 18.8.
That's good. That's really good.
That is very good. So
That's
it's probably a
phenomenal.
little bit early,
Yeah.
but that's great quality stuff. And this
So
is on the Beersford location. So that Flex 719, it had 10.86 tons per acre of silage and was 18.8% crude protein.
how many tons?
8, 10.8.
10.8.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking that. So you don't need a lot of that, honestly, at all to go into a little bit of corn silage and some rough prairie hay that's pretty low protein to get yourself to 14, 15%. Like not
Yeah,
much at all.
that's true.
And pop that up in a hurry. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Was that the highest yielding one? What was the highest yielding one?
Uh, you know,
Rye.
I hate to even say, yeah, it was rye.
Yeah.
Hazlitt rye was the highest yielding at 10.9.
That's splitting hairs.
But for some reason, it doesn't say the crude protein and the relative feed value off of that one.
Maybe they were
I'm not
negative.
sure why.
No, I'm just kidding. They're not negative.
What does have a dash?
Well, it's just negative. Yeah, it was. No, it's not negative, but it's a lot lower than the triticale. Though.
Yeah, so at other locations, it was 14,
Yeah, which
uh,
is nothing to sneeze at, right?
16.
So
Yeah, yeah,
that's actually
so
pretty good.
decent. Yeah, there we go. Update from the SDSU winter
That's what's going on here.
forage
Silage
trials.
trucks running around everywhere. Most people are in full swing. If not by the midweek, they definitely
Yep.
will be. So just a lot
Yep.
of running around, running around.
I hear you.
Everything looks
Uh,
good though. This is like one of the best summers ever, from a balance of precipitation all the way through.
yeah,
Phenomenal. Now,
I couldn't agree more.
corn, soybeans will not have record yields at all. They'll be fine, maybe above average, but like not great. Just because for us to do that well, we almost have to have a early spring, mid spring drought bad enough to set the grass and hay back farther than you want. There's no other way to get that consistent stand established other than to be in a spring drought for corn and soybeans and then turn it on. But then by the time you get that, you've already suppressed your cool season grass growth and your first cutting hay that in a way that you'll never recover from. So
Yeah. Yeah.
overall, great balance.
Great balance. Yep. Pastures, it just looks so nice.
Pasture conditions are,
Very good.
on a scale of 1 to great, it's like late fall, winter fire hazard. Great. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's
There's some
after fully
biomass.
stocked, there's going to be so much biomass out there that it's going to be susceptible to burn.
Yep. I always like that folks out west where danger is a real hazard. And after you get a really good year, it's like, yeah, it was a great year, but
But
now there's
yeah,
a lot of that yellow blossom sweet clover, and we're gonna be fighting
slip through
fires.
somewhere. Yeah. And
It's
to
like
put it in
son of a gun, we
context,
got just what we wanted, but now it's all gonna
yeah.
burn.
Yeah, to put it in context, Justin and I are in areas that do not typically worry about fires really much at all, other
No,
than small isolated stuff. But this year, if it really stays dry like this, could be kind of an exception. We could get a little taste of what you guys face out west. Out
we
west.
could, we could.
Okay.
Um, okay, so we mentioned that there's an election coming up, but other than the election, the presidential election, there's some chatter of policy changes, right? So with RFK backing Trump, we think there's probably going to be some changes coming. Not changes, more alignment,
Yeah.
right, with
Kind of that's
what
what it
should
is.
happen with ag policy or what
Yeah.
will happen if Trump is elected.
Yeah. So I just listened to a webinar this morning, kind of in the background. I was working on some stuff here on the computer, and it was Kip Tom, kind of broadly representing the Republican side of things, and President Trump, a very likely possible next Secretary of Agriculture. So Kip Tom from Indiana, been pretty active in politics for a while, farmer from there. And then Rob Snyder, who was the agriculture liaison at EPA up until just a few weeks ago, as he stepped back from that, probably to position himself for some kind of a larger position in a Harris Walls cabinet if they're successful. And again, personal opinions aside, I'm just watching, right, as a bystander, right, just to say, okay, well, how this debate is going. And it's interesting. There was some interesting, it was yeah, kind of like the same old, hey, the the Republicans get to beat up on the Democrats for, we need less regulation and we need, more trade, and fair enough, right? And then the Democrats need to get to the Republicans to say, we've got severe antitrust issues, we've got too much consolidation, the big are getting big in a real big way, and it's got to be protected and that kind of stuff. So a little bit of the same gamut of kind of those punches that they throw at each other, no matter what day of the year it is, in what they're talking about. Thought there was a few more interesting. So President Trump even made a comment a few days ago, maybe a week ago, about how on the campaign trail that in agriculture they were going to invest in, and this is basically in deference, or in alluding to RFK's kind of positions around regenerative agriculture and soil health, where Trump said that that his USDA, or his administration, was going to focus on modern farming techniques. And I think it's a rephrasing of soil health, regenerative, climate smart, everything into modern, which is, the terms always change, right?
Yeah.
Another funny thing about that, and this is just, I thought was kind of hilarious in some ways, again, regardless of what your opinions are. It used to be chemicals, right? Chemicals that we use that are necessary for a lot of the way we do agriculture today. Herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, things like that for crops. Those used to be called herbicides and pesticides. And then they became something different. Then they were chemistry, ag chemistry. And then it became crop protection. And crop protection has been used as a nomenclature vastly for the last 10 or 15 years, right? So then when you're lobbying for the ag chemical industry, you're lobbying for crop protection. It sounds great. I heard him now talking about crop care, right? Crop
Ah,
care.
yeah.
So
Fancy.
the
Nice way to
terminology
put
has
it.
evolved, right? Now it's crop care. Now it's like, we care. We
Mm.
care about these plants, Justin. It's like almost like taking a page out of the animal husbandry handbook of livestock.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to Trump's comments were about like modern farming techniques. He's speaking about soil health practices. He's speaking about soil health practices, but instead of using climate smart, which is what the Democrats used for funding the same practices, now we're talking about modern agriculture techniques. So they really are coalescing around an argument about they both are really now kind of viewing the subject matter as being a favorable talking point and something to invest in. They're just using different terms for it, and then they just fight. When you hear the argument, it sounds like they're fighting on either sides of the issue, when really they're just using different terms for the same thing in a lot of ways. So it's interesting. I don't know. It's really become kind of a bipartisan issue, to be honest with you. Investing in soil
It,
health practices at the farm
yeah.
level.
Well, the investment part is real. It has
Yep.
been real. I mean, it's been shown even in Trump's 4-year term, there was still some things coming out, and then obviously here now, and with Biden's, the IRA, and there was billions of dollars thrown into that, and so I think things have continued to evolve over the last 8 years.
Yep.
But now, rather than it being one politically sided issue, I think what you're saying is correct. It's a bipartisan uh, issue, problem, thing that we get to solve together. Gets solved all
Hmm.
with people moving in the same direction. It seems like,
What?
but
Yep.
but there's going to be things tied to it differently and how it gets funded probably too.
Kind of, yeah. So
That-
it's the terms are like conservation, right? If you're talking about the Republican side of the aisle, and then you're talking more about carbon if you're on the Democratic side of the aisle right now. Although there's some pretty significant overlap in the practices that do both of those things at the same time. The the one thing that was asked on there that I didn't get a great answer to was like the future of 45Z tax credits, which
Yeah.
is, and if you're wondering where and when these dollars are going to hit, I would tell you that most of these dollars are in a queue that is going to be deployed over the next 5 to 6 years that you really haven't seen yet. So if you have applied for EQIP as recently as 12 months ago and not got funded, or looking for a program, there's more. It takes a lot to steer that kind of big ship to get those deployed. So the investments that were made the last 3 or 4 years that have been announced are really going to take a little bit to shift over into what's available for your farm and ranch. But 45Z is a great example of that. So 45Z tax credits were designed to be completely separate from 45Q tax credits. 45Q tax credits were actually pretty sure came out of the Trump presidency. I don't know if it was a policy point of his, but it certainly legislation came out during that time frame, which was the incentive, which is building the carbon pipeline. And it was I don't know how they got it through. I think it was kind of pushed through as a gift to the ethanol industry as a way for them to modernize their CI scores to meet the growing demand from states like California and then others that are following suit like Oregon and Massachusetts, which are going to be demanding lower CI score biofuels for them to be able to max out on credits and or meet their standards. This is the crazy environment that we're in, where California is importing sugarcane biofuels from Brazil into California because of the lower carbon intensity score, the way it's ranked, than Midwestern grown ethanol. Now, Midwest corn grown ethanol in a soil health system is competitive and actually beats that, but the mechanism needed to be put into place to allow for that. So 45Z solidifies that into law. And my guess is that this is also probably a bipartisan issue going forward. Those tax credits are scheduled to expire in 2027. That's the main reason that they haven't been, as front and center as maybe they would or could be for most biofuel companies. It's just not a long enough time horizon to take and develop develop what needs to be put together there to start traceability and individual field monitoring of practices.
That's the big part of it all, is the traceability part, isn't it?
Yeah.
As far
Yeah,
as
and
actually.
Basically, at the end of the day, you're going to get verified on X amount of bushels from this field that was treated this way, and so you basically have a quota that you could sell to any biofuel companies that would be accepting a premium for that of X amount of bushels produced in that field. So if you had 20 fields and you did all the soil health practices on one of them and not on the rest of them, and your 100-acre field yielded 200 bushels, right? You'd have exactly that many, exactly 20,000 bushels of that CI score, individually CI scored corn to sell. You can't sell more, you can't sell less. When you sell your 20,000, you're out.
And how do you verify that? Who
Well,
verifies it?
there's a number of different companies that are building an interface to the GREET model. So the uh, greenhouse gas reduction, I don't know what that acronym exactly stands for. I used to know it at one point.
GHG,
No, it's not GHG. So it's
greenhouse gas. Oh,
G,
that one.
GREET. Yeah, no, I know that one. GREET. So it's greenhouse gas reduction and something technology, energy, and I forget the other E. That's the publicly available model is being used. So if you're a company that wants to get into, being able to verify that, you create an interface with that model, and then you have farmers put in there. So if you saw a recent announcement between Farm Business Network and Gradable, that's what that was about. Continue Mag, Mitch Hora, down in Iowa. If you've seen any of his speaking circuit stuff, that's what they're doing. So if you want to interface with that, you can, and then deliver those CI scores to them. And the first kind of CI score stuff is going to be coming out this fall. Was done last year. It'd be interesting to see how it all plays out with that model. But the basic idea is you can lower the feedstock by about 30 points. So the CI score book value on corn is like 55 or 54 or something like that, and you can lower it up to about 30 points by using all the soil health practices that you can think of. So no-till cover crops, nitrogen inhibitors, nitrogen reduction, manures, fertilizer, crop rotation, things of that nature. So then they are able to get a tax credit. That's where the tax credits come in at 45Z. So 2 cents per gallon of biofuel produced per CI score point reduction. And then they can usually get a higher price for that ethanol into a more value add market. That's kind of how that works. And that, I mean, it's, again, I don't, the biofuel community is looking for how they're going to stay viable in the future. They're worried about electric vehicles. They're worried about that consumer, the gasoline market moving more towards electrification. Mm-hmm. They've not been overly successful in the last 10 or 15 years at getting over the blend wall and getting to higher inclusion rates. So if you're the biofuel industry, there hasn't been a lot of new investment in plants and infrastructure and technology. It's getting to be an older, all these plants are going to have 10, 15, 20 years on them now. They're going to start to need a lot of TLC. And we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do. China has no corn on the books, none, for the first time since like 1997 or 98 or something like that, 96 maybe. So we're going to figure out what we're going to do with all this corn.
Is that just a posturing play by China?
Probably. Yeah. Probably. I mean, they're probably going to drive, do what they can do. They'll hold out. They tend to do that. They tend to not buy and then buy in big amounts and then cancel a bunch, and like the worst trading partner you can. Well, I mean, it's just not consistent. That's the one thing that they've never been, strong at, other than soybean purchases being consistent at buying.
So on all those practices that you could do to then qualify no-till, crop rotation, nitrogen reduction, cover crop, manures, fertilizer.
Yep.
Are they all valued the same?
No. The cover crops are worth all the rest of them combined. Cover crops are the biggest driver of the GREET model by far. I think it's 16 or 17 points just for the cover crop part of it.
And does the model verify a cover crop use based off of NRCS standards?
I've not heard that answered yet. My assumption would be people would say, sure, kind of. They'd have to go back and dig into what the model had used, but I'm guessing that they'll use those standards as some kind of a parameter around that.
Yep.
The trickiest thing about it is that you actually need to plant the cover crop before the corn crop, not after the corn crop. So once harvest has happened, then the life cycle is complete, and the next life cycle in the LCA starts that moment. So the corn actually has to be planted into a cover crop field, not a cover crop put on the corn.
What?
Yeah,
How's that going to work?
not well. Not as
Not
well as
well
the
at
other way
all.
around. Well, I mean, it'll it's not as scalable as the other way around, right? The most scalable cover crop system that exists in the U.S. today is soybeans planted into rye fields
Yeah.
after standing corn in areas that don't, typically deal with excess moisture. And it's not like the cover crops don't work and can't work everywhere. They can, but it's like the easiest to put it in that system. It's
Hmm.
very scalable.
Yeah, it works. Everything
Uh,
works.
yeah.
The,
Remind me, I was talking about something I saw the other day I thought was really cool too, by the way. Another scalable cover crop system that I thought, I've heard about it. I've seen it like twice now. And I think it has great potential for like the center part of the Western Corn Belt, like James River
okay.
Valley, North
Yeah.
Dakota, South Dakota. What?
Not with rye then.
Not with rye. Oh, we'll get to that later.
Okay.
But
So
so 45Z is, yeah. What?
you have to. So there's you have to plant the corn into the cover crop. Let the cover crop continue to grow while the
No,
corn is
no,
there.
you don't have to let it grow. You just have to
You
like
have
put
to
it in
have
a
it.
cover crop field. Even if you did like like a
So
non-overwintering cover
something
crop the
after
fall before.
soybeans.
It just has to be in that field after the harvest of the last crop before the corn crop.
Gotcha. Yeah, that
You know what I
works.
mean? It,
Yep.
yeah.
We can still do that.
But but if soybeans come off late and you're going to be overwintering, I mean it's far more challenging to manage
It
planting
is.
corn into rye than it is
Not so like
soybeans.
north of I-80, it's more challenging. But you get south of I-80, and you can
Yeah,
do crimson clover, blends clover, hairy vetch that
that's true.
consistently overwinter. That's a perfect, nice little window where
That's
you
a good
can
point.
plant after soybeans. Have your clovers produce some nitrogen that following spring. Come back in, plant corn, spray it
Yep,
out.
yep,
Take advantage of some nitrogen credits. Reduce your nitrogen fertilizer input. There's another boost to your
yeah,
45Z tax credit.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, and I
Oh, that
like
works.
we've both been in places like I remember speaking before and being like, "Hey, it's a lot more challenging to plant corn into a rye cover crop," and people afterwards like, "It's not that bad. I've been doing it for years." It's like, well, okay,
Yeah.
I get it. I know it is, but
Yeah.
it's more of like that's like getting a master's degree in cover cropping or starting your PhD, not a
Hmm.
bachelor's level high school diploma cover cropping, which is
Yeah, when you are aware of the management that it takes to be
right.
diligent with spraying rye before corn and making sure that you've got liquid nitrogen on hand for your corn to get on the ground in a hurry, it's
Yeah,
not a big deal. But
no big deal. But
if you go plant your corn into it and forget to spray it a little bit later, and now you're short on N, and your soils are cold, your corn kind of suffers a bit.
yeah. So that's one of those things. It's like I don't know. I think that's actually probably something that both administrations would push. One, you think about how we got ethanol to start with, right? In the '90s, I think those of us in the Midwest kind of felt like we got ethanol through because of energy independence, right? It was like that's what, like yeah, this is about energy independence. It
Yeah.
was really a coalition between kind of the Republican, the right pushing for energy independence, the left pushing for an environmental movement, right? It was a cleaner fuel. Like the MTBE
Okay.
replacement that they initially got rid of was incredibly good for the environment, and it still has a lower CI score than gasoline. So it's a cleaner burning fuel. So it was a rare case where the environmental movement basically teamed up with the energy independent conservatives in a populist movement and said we both get a win here. Let's start an industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the
Mm-hmm.
first ethanol mandates came from. It wasn't just, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We don't have that much political power in the Midwest to make corn ethanol a thing if we didn't also have lots of other people that were lobbying for it. And they were.
Yep.
That's how we got ethanol the first time around.
Gotcha. Yep.
And
Okay.
the second time around, we've been asking for years and say, how can we get more ethanol? And basically the environmental movement is saying, we'll give you more ethanol, but we want to get more for our side of the bargain. We want to see more investment into other practices that also are conducive with what we would like to see, which is a higher soil health, healthier landscape. So they've kind of said this is what we'll go along with. It's been very mixed in its reception in the Midwest. You have everything from former secretaries, state level secretaries of agriculture, and former corn growers leadership saying that these kind of tax credits are absolutely imperative to the future of ethanol. To lots of folks saying any more rules or any more people asking about how we farm or what we do or any pipeline is just absolutely an atrocity that we can't handle. And I have no position in the matter. I'm just telling you, it's a wild fight out there,
Yeah.
with nuance on both sides.
Yep. Sure seems like it.
So that's that. So that expires in 2027. All that to say, there is a wild incentive carrot sticking out there for soil health activities around 45Z. Most ethanol plants are not engaging with it today. To take advantage of a tax credit that expires in 2027, you basically have to work on the 2026 crop. At that point, you're talking about trying to scale up and change your procurement business model overnight to take advantage of something that might only last for another 2.5, 2.25 years. That's just not enough time horizon. So you're seeing pilots, right? Dreyfus has a pilot, and there'll be probably ADMs doing more with their FBN gradable, partnership in the near future. But I don't foresee large scale change into biofuel feedstock procurement. So we talk about corn as a model. It's the most attractive towards corn crops, but not limited to corn at all. So soybeans, sorghum, anything, canola, any of those will be fair game for the CI score tax credit.
Are there any benefits to livestock on the land, raising livestock? Is there anything with the 45Z tax credit that correlates to animal?
Not that I can tell.
No, okay.
There might be a slight reduction in the CI score of the distiller's grains coming out if you are in a feeding system that would somehow reward you for taking that as a reduction, but I'm not entirely sure how they even quantify that.
Yeah.
It's a very narrow life cycle. Having manure would be a slight advantage, but
sure.
But it's slight. It's like a couple of points out of that scale. Oh, hey, can I tell you about the other thing I saw? Okay, and I'm sure.
Yeah, the other
this.
cover
We haven't talked
crop
about this.
use.
Okay, so I will tell you that the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, I talked to the guy yesterday, neighbor. Well, it wasn't yesterday, but last Friday. That was saying he's not in any program, not in anything. Did a bunch of silage for the dairy last year, and he's like, I just was shocked at how little residue I have out there, how much exposure I have. We always chop silage, but 30, 40 acres, right? So you do some end rows around a field and 1 or 2 fields that you put manure on right afterwards, stuff like that, Did a couple 100 acres and was like, man, I couldn't believe how much that blew, right? How much exposure that was. So he's like, I'm going to plant something, something reasonable. I want a little bit of a mix. I want this and that. Going to go plant 300 acres out of it.
Okay.
I said the biggest thing is like those soybeans the next year just got whiplashed. And 3 out of the last 5 years, one of the biggest risks to soybean stands in our area has been, for lack of a better term, just sandblasting. Just
wind whip
whipping around.
Yep.
Blowing up small dust particles, which is a combination of very poor soil aggregation, right? Which is also kind of a cry for help when it comes to soil stability to begin with. And these are fields that have been probably cropped for 30 or 40, 50 years without grazing, without manure, without any animal impact, without rotation back into a perennial, etc. So they're losing a lot of structure. And then you get high winds. And last year, I remember we had a field that we replanted twice. So it took 3 plantings to get it established. The last one was on the 1st of July because the first 2 literally got decimated. Growing points out of the ground on soybeans right away. It's like having a hailstorm, but it came just sheared off.
Shears them
So
off,
he's like,
yeah.
I just need something out there so I don't shear my soybeans off.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, a few weeks ago I was at a place just to the west of here, and this is a pretty large, very, I would say, good size and progressive operation. Very, very good farmers, good people. They've got a little bit of livestock, mostly in a feed yard setting. They graze some. So 15-inch soybeans planted in air seed are 2 tanks. 1 tank's planting soybeans. The other tank is planting annual ryegrass, flax, and maybe oats. Yeah, oats,
Okay.
annual ryegrass, and flax.
Okay.
Small mix, couple pounds an acre, planted in the 7.5s in between the 15-inch rows. So it's a purposeful planted cover crop planted at the same time as the soybeans that gets taken out at the first pass of the soybeans, right? So got established, got up there, and then it did two things. One, it gave protection to the soybeans, so that when that wind wouldn't get going that fast. Of course, the oats and annual ryegrass are extremely aggressive, right? Out of the ground first, fast,
Protected them
providing
just
a
a
little
little
bit of
bit.
protection to the soybeans. Yep, and also kind of canopying over top of it. And then as soon as they got probably a foot, there's probably a foot high, foot to 16 inches high. At that point, they were challenging the soybeans, right? So they were making that soybeans go up
Grow up.
instead of just coming out, going up at the same time. Terminate them at the same time that they normally would have that first post pass, regressing back, barely even see it. The only place you could really see it in the rows at that point then was on the end rows and sacrifice areas and stuff. But then when you got into the field, you could open it up and see that residue there. And they also had significantly lower weed pressure just because of a little bit, and it's not that much, but a little bit of something growing there to keep the weed pressure back. And so we know that, we can, if we create a vacuum, we'll have something that fills it. So the whole point was,
Yeah.
let's plant a weed, quote unquote, the cover crop. Let's plant something that we can control extremely easily with very generic herbicides, right? So that we don't have something growing in between the rows, which is very difficult to kill with expensive herbicides. It worked. It looked phenomenal.
I like
There's a
this.
couple thousand acres
I,
of it.
yeah.
I was like,
The annual ryegrass wasn't hard to kill though. Like, well, I suppose if it was a little bit
didn't seem
warmer,
to be.
because it's probably going to be your first. So he's starting
Oh,
clean though, right? He's probably coming with a burn
yep,
down and then
yep.
planting everything,
I'd have
and
to
then
get into
coming
the
back with a
details.
burn down and a pre.
Yep. Well, no, he's probably not cleaning anything up. He's probably just
Right
doing
away, is
a
not.
burn down and a pre. He doesn't have to clean anything up because the cover
Okay.
crop was planted with the soybeans. Like he didn't.
Okay.
So I agree with you totally. Like the annual ryegrass, especially when it's waxy and it's cool, right? To have that come in is tough to kill. But this would have been, he would be trying to kill the annual ryegrass the middle of June, right?
Right.
It's warm, it's
And
hot.
yeah, the other annual ryegrass gets a bad name because it's hard to kill after it overwinters, and that
Okay.
root system is 3 foot deep,
Established.
and it's way hard to kill that in
Hmm.
the spring the following year after the fall it's planted. So if it's annual ryegrass that's 6 weeks old at the oldest, it's
Hmm.
probably only 4 weeks old though, isn't it? When they
Yeah,
come
it's
in
not
with
that
burn
old.
down. I like that. I like that a lot. It's kind of similar to people have to plant oats with sugar beets
Yeah.
in order to protect the sugar beet seedlings from not shearing off.
Yep.
And this is same
Analogous.
concept. Yep.
Yeah. I thought it was brilliant. It was not expensive because you're making the same pass over there, usually just a couple pounds of
Yeah.
this stuff, putting it out, of just good clean seeds. But I mean, over thousands of acres. And I thought this is actually addressing 3 or 4 of the actual largest problems of growing soybeans in this area.
Yeah.
We control for things that we can't control. Loss of aggregate soil structure every time we're raising soybeans, and losing an actual stand due to
Mm-hmm.
high
Wind.
winds and,
Yeah.
and soil erosion. That's not even counting soil. It's like stopping soil erosion, right? Which should be the number one thing. But agronomically, I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. For some reason, it doesn't seem like the wind is going to stop doing that.
I don't think so either.
I don't know why. It's just, man, it's crazy in the springs
Yeah.
lately.
But I will tell you though, like I've been noticing the stuff that we have coming out of perennials. So like coming out of alfalfa or alfalfa grass hay that we're going back into crop production. So using that as crop stuff with a crop history that's going back into crops. That stuff right next side by side does not blow
Yeah.
that first year out.
Yeah.
It's got so much built up organic matter and soil structure that you can do all kinds of tillage to it first year and it
Yep.
doesn't blow. I mean, the dirty 30s weren't the dirty 20s or the dirty teens, right? It took a few decades or a decade in some places to really break down that soil aggregate matter from virgin sod to be able to blow the way it did.
Sure.
I mean, the Dust
Yeah.
Bowl region, the Panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, was essentially settled in right about the time of World War One, and so for the first 10 years, it didn't blow like crazy
Yeah.
because it had aggregate soil structure. And then it did. Okay. Anyway, I thought that was cool. Like, I thought this
That's great.
could really catch on. A very
Yep.
scalable growth system. You had to have an air seeder to do it the way that they did it. The 15-inch inner plants would work if you're doing 30s. It was just a neat system.
Or you could even broadcast that on pretty easily and you'd get it to grow.
That's true.
You know, like those seeds
Yeah.
aren't going to take much to pretty small, and oats wick moisture so good. You get,
Yeah.
and then
I
just
think
plant
the
into it,
idea
plant
was
over it.
that, you get it away from, you could have to burn it down probably closer to when you plant. You wouldn't probably want to go till mid-June with that
Yeah.
broadcast
Yep.
system. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
What else? What's going on in your fall? Anything else? Anything unique, different that you're doing?
I don't think so. Not a whole lot more unique than what we've talked about with silage harvest, and we'll come back with some winter annuals, rye mixes too. That rye seems to just be a staple for giving us an option of something to do with it in the spring, whether it's putting it up or grazing it, or spraying it out and planting a crop, depending on what that spring's like.
Yeah.
Seems like we've done every possible option with rye now. Checked them all off.
The cycle. Been through the cycle.
Yep. Well, yep. We've used rye for the cycle. Yep.
That's good. And this is a friendly PSA reminder. You can plant rye for a really long time yet. For a long time. Like,
Yeah, you could plant rye in October and it's going to be there in the spring. You could plant rye in November and it's going to be in the spring. Yep. Oh, we just started lambing season, fall lambing season. We just started that. Yep. A couple days ago. So off and rolling with the fall lambers.
There you go.
Easy time of year.
In
Clam.
jugs, jugging them up.
We still do. You know, we had, while we were at State Fair, we did have 3 ewes lamb out on pasture, and we have 0 lambs to show for it. So
Okay.
the
Just
coyotes
experiment.
are prevalent,
Oh, the
and
coyotes.
they, wiped them out.
Oh, ouch.
So they're in the barn.
They're in the barn.
Yep. Pasture lambing's not happening in our place. I think I've gotten a little bit too arrogant in the way I've talked about predator control too. And people come and they're like, "Oh, how come we don't have guard dogs?" I'm like, "Oh, we don't need guard dogs. The coyotes, they don't hurt the sheep at all." And they haven't ever killed a ewe, but they will kill a lamb if it's born.
Yeah.
And hopefully now they don't start killing ewes. I don't know.
That's one of those things. Animals are extremely trainable. So once they, once your livestock start to get out, they'll get out a lot.
Yeah.
Like if they're not getting out, you could like remove one of the wires. Cow's been in all summer. You could just remove one of the wires. They'll stay in. They start getting out. You could add a wire, and it won't make a difference.
It is that time of season too. This is the time of year when calves start getting out.
So do.
Yep.
So once the coyotes have not been bothering your sheep, they might. Hopefully, that wasn't like a gateway.
Yeah,
into
right. The taste of lamb.
Yeah. Well, carry on.
Okay. Good fall update.
Yep.
We've got 2 guests coming up that are going to be awesome.
They're awesome.
So stay tuned to the next. Actually, we already have them recorded, so we're kind of cheating here, pushing this one in, but they're going to be fantastic. I think we've had some heavy hitters here, the last one, and 2 more coming up. So awesome agenda. Appreciate everybody listening.
Everybody stay safe this fall.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.
Well, we hope you enjoyed another episode of the Roots and Ruminants podcast. Let us know what you thought of it. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those social media things. And, if you ever have any questions, just give us a call. We've got a toll-free number here at 888-498-7333. Be glad to hear from you. Thank you.